In February of 1437, King James I of Scotland was stabbed to death while hiding in a sewage tunnel at Blackfriars Priory in Perth. And the ringleader of the assassination was the King's uncle, Walter Stewart, Earl of Athol. He was also the man who was going to take over as the new King of Scotland. But he faced perhaps one of the most brutal executions in Scottish history. So I'm standing outside St Giles Cathedral, very close by to where the Market Cross used to be. It was moved in Victorian times. It's just round there now, but it used to be further down the Royal Mile, and it's where all the royal proclamations and the news was given, and also the location of the executions. Now, on this day, the 26th of March 1437, the 77-year-old Walter Stewart faced his final day of torture and execution. It had lasted 3 days, you see, for killing the king. So day one, he was hoisted up and dropped down repeatedly. A big crane hoisted up by the limbs, dropped down, and it stopped short of the ground. He didn't hit the ground because the idea was to dislocate his limbs. So up and down he went all day long, virtually dislocated every limb in his body. They then placed him into a pillory, and they placed a red-hot iron crown onto his head to burn him. And the inscription on the crown was, "King of all traitors." They let this thing cool down on his head, then they ripped it off, removing most of the skin with it. So that was day one of his punishment. He was then placed in the Tolbooth jail, which was been just round the corner here, to spend a painful night in prison. Day two, he was tied naked to a hurdle and dragged up and down the Royal Mile by a horse, naked on this hurdle thing. There's also reports of him being blinded and tortured with red-hot pincers, ripping off his skin. But that was day two. Back in prison for another painful night. Day three, the last day, they tied him down to a bench and they disemboweled him. They pulled his entrails out and burnt them in front of his face. And to make sure he didn't miss any of this, they kept throwing buckets of cold water into his face so that he didn't go unconscious. They wanted him to smell his own innards being burnt and to see it. And the final thing the executioner had to do was reach into the chest cavity and pull out his heart, and that was him dead. So after that, they cut his head off. So why was the execution so horribly brutal? Well, of course, killing the king was about the most serious thing you could do. But also, the widow queen and the mother of the future King James II had to make an example out of this person. She had to make sure that no one else would ever dare try and kill a king, especially her son. So that's why it was so brutal. But in terms of ghosts, a headless ghost is seen around the area where the Market Cross used to be. And you got to think, someone that died such a traumatic, horrible death, is probably still going to be hanging around here. They're not going to rest peacefully, are they? So look out for the headless ghost of Walter Stewart, the Earl of Athol, who died on this day, the 26th of March in 1437.